Let me stop you there. You shouldn't feel ever, and this is where our society has gone wrong. You should never feel bad about being in a good position and putting yourself in a good position.
Yeah.
You should never feel bad about that. And our society demonizes people who are trying to succeed. And that is stupid and it needs to stop. People want to hear about people who are doing well. The smart people will go, holy crap, Cailey is the best agent out of 20,000 agents. I need to listen to her. And then the idiots will be in the comments talking about how horrible of a person you are. And those people suck. Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
All right, we're gonna get going. Steve, you ready? Cailey, you good?
Yeah,
We are always ready, Tom. Go.
Okay.
Tom Storey Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already joined our community here on YouTube, if you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button now so you can get notified each time a new episode comes out. They will come out every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're listening on the podcast apps, we just want to say thank you for listening. Now, we've had a really hot start to this podcast, some big guests so far in 2023, which leads me to introducing who our guest is today. Cailey Heaps is with us. Now, Cailey Heaps, first of all, is just a good human being, someone I've got to know really well over the last few years, and just so happens to, because this is really the third thing, just so happens to run the #1 team in Canada for Royal Lepage. That's out of 20,000, #1. So that's pretty impressive. We're excited for Cailey to be here. We can't wait to chat with her. Cailey, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here as well.
Yeah. So new year, do you have crazy big goals for this year? Or are you not worrying about all the market talk and everything's crashing? Like, what's the mindset going into 2023?
Yeah, so my mindset shifts in a changing market. So typically I'm volume focused. I want to look at what our total GCI and sales volume is. In this market, like a changing market, I focus on market share. Because I know that the sales volume is going to change. I know our GCI is going to change. But if we can gain market share, and then we know that when the market comes back, we'll come back with strength. So we've done a lot of, in the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks, a ton of business planning, more than I've ever done in my career, to be honest. And it's not necessarily all about money. It's also about balance and lifestyle and a million other things that are important to me. But yeah, so that's my shift is focused to market share.
I actually, whenever your name comes up in conversation with other people, because it does a lot, by the way, I always go like, Cailey's awesome. And you know what? When I go out for dinner with her, she's not just looking at her phone, dealing with 18 offers. Like, she does have a life. So I think that side of thing is extremely important, where that should be in your business planning as well, not just how much money am I going to make, right?
Yeah, and it changes, right? Like, I think everyone defines success very differently. I'm sure you, Tom, would define it differently all three of us would define it differently.
Yeah.
It took me, approximately 20 years to figure out that working 18 hours a day isn't healthy. So now that I'm in year 24, I am trying to have more balance for sure.
Right. So let's go back in time here. How many years in real estate? What does the team structure look like? You sell in Toronto, but you do specific pockets of Toronto. Like, for everyone watching and listening, what's kind of the backstory of how this all started?
Yeah. So I, sort of my circuitous route into the business world, but I worked in advertising, in beer and advertising before real estate, separately, 2 different jobs. And I just, I liked it, but I wasn't sort of in love with it. My mom was a single practitioner in the real estate industry. She wasn't running a business per se. I mean, she was running a business of a very different scale.
Right.
She was very well reputed, and she needed help. So I said, okay, well, I'll just come help you for a year. So I made 28 grand my first year. Thought that was pretty awesome. And
better than zero.
Yeah, exactly. I was unlicensed. I was an assistant. I was just sort of working in the back end. And at the end of the year, we looked at each other and I said, I kind of like it. And she said, you're good at it. Why don't you go get licensed and let's see what we can do. So that was in 1999 that I joined her. I was 23, I think, at the time. I don't think I was 23 when I joined her. And yeah, I'm now 46. So that was a few years ago. We worked together. Oddly enough, I just this morning got a calendar reminder that my first sales team member joined me 11 years ago. So It was just my mom and I until
11 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom and I and Pamela, who was our administrator until 11 years ago. And then Megan joined me as my first assistant, and she's now one of my top agents. She's incredible. So yeah, it was, we were very small until then. At that point, it became pretty obvious that to grow the business, all of our growth has been organic. I've never sat down and said, okay, in 10 years, I want to have a team of 30 people. It's always just been to service clients. So we're now a team of about 45 people.
45 now. And what's the split up between sales and administration?
Yeah, so that's a good question. As you know, our model's very, very different.
Yeah.
So our sales team is under 20 people.
Okay.
And the balance is marketing, management, our lifestyle concept store, our concierge team, our assistants. So we have a really different business model than most. And our volume. So I remember when we broke 1 million GCI was in 2010.
Yep.
And we've grown by 16 or 1700% by then. So it's been a good run.
It's funny. So you were saying like you've never actually thought about like in 2012 or 2013 when you hired the first team member, it wasn't like I'm going to build this massive team and we're going to take over all this market. It just kind of naturally happened. I mean, I know you're a competitive person, so it must have been there, but you didn't write it down and say, I'm going to do this.
You know what? It was never like a huge goal of mine to be at that stage. So in 2010, was it a goal of mine to be number one? I honestly had never really conceptualized it at that point. As you start to get closer to it, as you get up to the 20s and the 10s, then you're like, well, you might as well just go for it at this point. Like, let's just do it. And I am probably the most competitive person. Well, top 100 competitive people in Toronto, I would say.
Yeah, probably.
But it's not, for me, it's not about beating another agent. It's just about me being better than I was.
Beating yourself every year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Steve, sorry, Cailey, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's really important, just a piece to distinguish, because I'm very collaborative. I think it's amazing to have great relationships in real estate. I'm not ever sitting down going, I'm going to take that agent down. It's never about that. It's about how do I be better every day.
That's what the other agents think about you, right?
Yeah, great. At least one or two I know of, but yeah.
I was thinking, so Steve, in your market, so you're in Surrey, me and Cailey are both in Toronto. Do you see teams like Cailey's existing in Surrey, like high-end, large teams with a lot of administrators? Does that exist in your market, or is that more of a Vancouver thing?
Yeah, I don't get to see Vancouver board because I'm not a member of that board. It's not a thing here, really. Okay. I mean, our average team size is probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 people. There's a few teams now that have 10 or 15 people. They don't do that much more business. Even on a total scale, like it's not just per capita. I won't share it here, but Cailey, we have a top 10% award, and they just released the stats, and they actually, in the package, they say how many properties you need to sell to be in the top 10. And for 2022, that number is less than half of the average of each year previous. So it's like really small. Yeah, it's a really small amount. What I'm always blown away by is large teams like yours. And I know they're more prevalent in areas like Alberta per se and that sort of thing. We just don't seem to have them here. So I've got like scaling questions for you, but before we get there, I want to know about the market. That's where I want to focus in on this. Like, what are you expecting in 2023?
So I think, well, first of all, I've checked my phone to make sure it's still working several times this year.
Oh no.
It is, by the way, still working.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think that the theme that we're going to see in our market, in the central Toronto market, we've now hit a period of stabilization. I don't think we're going to see wild swings in either direction. And I believe that consumer confidence will come back, in that buyers and sellers will just acknowledge that this is the new normal market. So I anticipate an increase in volume, not a drastic change in pricing.
Yeah. I think the same thing, right? Like, I think we may actually have more sales than we did last year, because the second half of 2022 was literally like half of what we expected normally, right?
Exactly.
And when there's 7 rate hikes that happen in a year, maybe we'll have 3 more 25-point rate hikes this year. I don't know, before eventually it goes down at some point, maybe this year, maybe it doesn't. But I feel like most of the damage has been done. Right? Yeah. It's like,
I think it's like old news now. Like, people hear 25-point rate hike and they're like, we're kind of expecting that.
Yeah.
I personally think that rates are going to go down within 12 to 14 months.
Yeah. I think it's totally possible. It's cool because there's so many different opinions on that. And the coolest thing is that most of us are going to be wrong. like one of us will be right by accident. Probably the weirdest one we hear is the one that's going to be right. Cause I don't even think Bank of Canada knows. They're going to have to, based on the inflation reports, and figure it out.
Exactly.
Right now, as we move into the year, we've already had on our team, our buyers kind of say to us like, hey, where are the listings? Like, can we see anything? Are you finding the same thing for you? Do you think it's just like maybe in the next few weeks as we get closer to February, more things will come into the market, or is there going to be an inventory issue all year?
I think if we look back on past years, the market doesn't typically start until this week or next. So I don't think it's different than other years. I think that there will be a shortage of inventory in the areas where we need it, and there'll probably be an abundance of inventory in
where we don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's my gut instinct.
Sellers' expectations right now. Because
this is the thing. For this whole thing to get moving, right? It has to be sellers have to get in line with buyers can now afford.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with that? This is what Tom and I want to know, because we have to learn to sell our listings too. So
I mean, I've gone into a point where I'm just very, very straight with people, and I say, you're hiring me for my opinion.
Right.
So if you would like to sell your property, which presumably is why you've hired me, then this is what you have to do. And it might feel blunt and it might feel impolite, but me placating a seller for 3 months while they price their property and tell me how to market it and tell me that the market's the same isn't going to serve anyone. I lost a pitch recently because another agent came in with they priced the property 3 ways: aspirationally, realistically, or you can price it below market and try and get a bidding war. And it was the aspirational pricing that actually got the agent the listing, even though they may or may not get that price. But I thought it was an interesting approach.
Giving those 3 options to the seller.
Yeah, see which one they want to go with. I'm personally only going to try aspirational pricing for about 2 weeks, and then we're going to get real.
Yeah.
But I think it was sort of an interesting. So I wrote a note to my team about it yesterday, and I thought that might not be a terrible approach. That sellers still have the chance to try their price,
right?
And then you get on board with my pricing if that doesn't work.
Because every once in a while you don't get a listing because someone gave them a higher price, and then it sells for that, and you're like, oh, okay, like. Fine, it shouldn't have, but you get burned every once in a while, where even though you're probably right.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. So rarely though. Like usually, you're pretty bang on. Tom, I remember like many episodes back now, I was telling you there was a couple of listings that we lost because they didn't like our price. Those are both still not sold listings.
Right.
So interesting.
And I'm very happy that I don't have those 2 not sold listings currently. Like they may come back to us. They're great people, great clients, but they're clinging to what was in a price point.
I bet they will come back to you.
Hopefully. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe not hopefully. Maybe hopefully they sell and they get their high price, but it doesn't appear that they're doing that right now.
Yeah.
Well, especially for real estate agents listening, because Cailey, our audience, like on YouTube, is a lot of buyers and sellers and consumers and investors. On the audio side, it's a lot of real estate agents. I don't know why that happened. That's just how this worked out. But even if you win that listing by over promising it, and then it's not free to put a listing on the market. There's a lot of money behind bringing something to the market. And then you do all that and then don't sell it and then lose it in 3 months when the contract's up and you're down $8,000 and you're like, so it's like, it's not actually a winning approach unless maybe it's like, okay, we try this price with the understanding that if we're getting no action in a 3-week time period, we adjust accordingly, right?
And the bigger issue, in my opinion, than the money lost on a listing is your reputation. You only have one. So if you want to start being known as the agent who overprices and doesn't sell, go for it. It's not the reputation I want.
Yeah, you want people to say, I see your sold signs everywhere, not I see your signs everywhere.
Exactly. And, you want the buyer, like the consumer market, to know if your sign's on that property, it's going to sell. This isn't a game. This isn't just like testing the waters.
Yeah. And that's a very real thing, right? Like if you own market share, other agents, not even just the consumers, but other agents get a pretty good idea really quickly if you price well, if you bring on good listings. I can think of one in a producer in my area where in the first 3 weeks, I'll toss any number at that person because they just take listings. right?
Interesting.
So you do get that reputation of how your business model works. And I think like my mentor did that for many years because he was always aggressive on price. He always recommended, listen, we're going to sell for more. This is before like the $100,000-$200,000 bidding war. This is like, if you could get $1,000 over, you were stoked, right?
Yeah.
He would always price really aggressively, and we would often end up in multiple offers in a market that we shouldn't end up in multiple offers. So you can get that rep.
Yeah. And I think it's important, you have to choose who you want to be and what you want to be known for. And if someone wants to be known as being like the really cocky agent in a market and they price high and some of the time it works and some of the times it doesn't, great. That's just not the business I want.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
If you have one word for 2023 for your business and life, is there one word you can think of?
Go slowly. That's not one word. Patience, I guess.
Yeah. I think mine's calm. It was my word last year too, but I just want to like make decisions calmly.
Yeah. That's smart. I think that we have worked in a career. Have you worked in a market downturn before, Tom?
Honestly, no. Like 2017 was a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
So no, I really haven't.
So if I go back to the financial crisis, I remember being pretty panicked at that point. And that was before I was big, right? That was just me and a couple of team members.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a decision at that point in that market just to continue spending on marketing and continue really focusing on what I was doing and not really pay attention to what was happening around me, which sounds very ignorant. It sounds like putting your head in the sand, but it was, from a market share perspective, my biggest year of growth.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
how does this year, or what we've experienced in the last 6 months, compare to October 2008 and the following 6 months for your career, what you experienced?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that felt very, very scary in the beginning. And then it became very obvious that it wasn't going to last long. So I think that this downturn has more legs. Like, I think this will last for a little bit longer. But I actually really, truly believe in my core that when it comes back, it's going to come back with like a very rapid strength. It's not going to be a slow burn. It's going to be like lighting the house on fire. Let's go. So in a way, like, part of me, I don't want to say I'm grateful for this slower period, but I'm certainly capitalizing on the slower period to do a lot more strategic business planning of where I want the business to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Yeah. Because we don't often get time to do that. When we've been so busy, it's just been surviving and like being so reactive. So now I'm hoping to take the time to be much more proactive in my planning.
Well, even like think back to like, okay, 2019 was a good year in Toronto real estate. Things did what they typically did. We go into 2020, the world shuts down. We think we're never going to be able to sell a home again. And then the market roars for the rest of the year. So weird. And then 2021 was just as much of a shit show. Like, it just kept roaring. Yeah. Starting into 2022, like those first 2 or 3 months of 2022 was ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous.
It was beyond what I could have imagined. Yeah.
And then Bank of Canada just turns off the tap and goes boom, 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 boom with rate hikes. And it's like, it's just been, we've never had a moment of just like a stabilized moving market. We've had these wild upswings and wild downswings. And I'm also kind of excited for maybe like a market that's got reasonable growth, whether that means up or down, and it kind of stabilizes here and you can have conversations and your buyer can make a decision and not just like, well, there's no home inspection. Well, that's your only option. Do you want the house or not? Right.
Yeah. And it allows us to be better at what we do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of us were around for the early 80s, because I think that's, personally, my thoughts are, I think we're probably a little bit closer to that than anything else we've seen, right? Crazy inflation, crazy high interest rates in comparison to what they were before. And there's probably a really good, like in the 80s, 81, fantastic, halfway through 81, 82, crash right back down to what it was before. And there's potential that happens here, let's say pre and post pandemic. And then it took 8 years to get back to the peak, right? In our market anyway, it was maybe not 8 years, 88, 89. So 6, 7 years. There's a really good chance that that's what we're going to get into. And I think everybody on this call anyway, but a lot of agents out there would really love to see a 1% growth market for 4 or 5 years, so they know what the heck they're doing again, and we kind of get a bit of a reset, as opposed to what Tom said, which is these crazy swings in 2 different directions.
I would be surprised if the Toronto market takes that long to get back to where it was. I mean, what do I know? I'm not an economist, but I think it will. I think it will happen faster than that. But I agree with you that it's, this isn't a 6-month blip. Well, we already know that we're past the 6-month mark. So,
and that's why I don't necessarily think that we're going to end up with, interest rate downturns in Q3. A lot of people are predicting that. I think if everything goes well. Sorry, you are one of them, right?
I'm a Q3 25-point down hike, which won't do anything, but I just feel like it'll make people feel okay.
It'll make people feel better. I'm a Q4 or Q1 2024.
The next one's January, I believe the 26th is the announcement, which will probably be 25 points. And then the next one after that's a February date. March date. Sorry, March date.
So what is so let's not talk necessarily just Toronto stats, but Cailey, your actual, like your listings, your market, the stuff you are seeing. What are you actually seeing in a downturn in price? Not in number of sales, but price.
Yeah, our pricing in the central core. So my business is focused in the central core of Toronto. I don't really go to the sort of horseshoe that sits around the city. And we're down, I'd say 10 to 12% on average. But then there's certain neighborhoods, like Moore Park would be an example. It's one of the sort of, luxury markets in the central core of Toronto, and pricing there has gone up.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the YouTube for Real Estate video course. Are you interested in creating an engaging, value-driven YouTube channel to help educate your client base on real estate in your market, as well as introduce a new revenue stream to your business? Perhaps you've already created a YouTube channel, but are struggling to gain viewership and the subscribers you are looking for. The YouTube for Real Estate course will provide you with proven tips and strategies on how to create and cultivate an engaging YouTube channel, as well as how to optimize your channel, resulting in higher viewership, subscribers, and yes, deals. But that's not it. I implemented YouTube in my business in early 2021, and it has easily been the best marketing source for meeting new clients that I have ever had in my business, period. Better than expensive geo-farming, internet marketing, and open houses combined. And now it even rivals my repeat and referral business. If you would like to learn all the tips and tricks for meeting new clients using YouTube, simply go to Video Course Login or click the link in the description below and sign up for the YouTube for Real Estate course today. And learn a year's worth of my painstaking research of learning how to use YouTube for real estate in just a few hours by taking the YouTube for Real Estate course. So go to videocourselogin.com right now and use the promo code TOMSHOW at checkout. Again, that's videocourselogin.com or simply use the link below.
And pricing there has gone up.
Really?
Yeah, for the high end. For the high end.
The luxury market seems to be doing the opposite of everybody else, because one of our luxury markets here in the Lower Mainland went down during the pandemic. In 2021, I think it went down like 2% when we were like 25% growth in the suburbs.
So interesting. And ours is not across all luxury segments of the market. Like, this is geographically a bit of an outlier, but I think it's because there's been such a chronic lack of inventory that people are like, I'm not waiting another 2 years. I finally have an option. I'm just going to buy it. I know the market will be back. And people in that snack, like it's sort of like 6 to 7 million or some of the recent sales, they're not as impacted by the interest rates. They can typically leverage themselves in either ways. So
what does the word luxury mean in central Toronto? Like, what's the price point starting at? Is that 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Like, what's?
In my mind, it's, I would say luxury.
Yeah.
True luxury is probably north of 5.
Yeah. Okay. North of 5. Now, you know what I noticed as well? So like, I'm like
snobby though. I don't mean it that way.
I get it.
Like, there are a lot.
This is where we're at. Like, this is why we have so much trouble often in like the YouTube comments. People are like, nobody can ever afford this. I'm like, do you understand how many $5 million houses there are in Vancouver? Lots of people can afford this.
Yeah.
Lots of people.
Well,
the average worker, for sure not. I don't feel like I can afford my house half the time because I don't take vacations. I pay for my house instead. But there's lots of people making lots of money out there.
Well, and that's when I say, like, there is certainly luxury homes in my mind, like in my rational mind would be like 2 million plus. It's just that there are more of those. So when I speak to like true luxury, I'm speaking to the exclusivity and availability or lack of availability, in which case it's 5 plus. There's much, much less inventory in that range.
I used to always look at the numbers from the TREB data from our real estate board. It would show like different price ranges and how many properties sold in different price ranges. And at the end of last year in 2022, the number one price range of homes was $1 million to 125, which makes sense, right? That's that it's weird to say entry level, but entry level freehold jumping up from a condo or a townhouse. The second biggest cluster was 125 to 15. Right, that was the second biggest. Then you go down into like 6 to 699 condos, 7 to 799 condo, but then the fifth one, which represented a ton of sales, was $2 million plus.
Yeah.
And I used to run the numbers previous years on the $2 million plus, and it was like 6% of the entire market. It's starting to be a lot more than 6% of the entire market. So my question to you is like, with the decrease in sales that we've had, you talking about luxury coming down 10, 12% across the board, like if it's the same house at the same time comparing it, do you think a part of that is because when there used to be more sales happening in that 2 plus into 5 into 10 into wherever it goes, and now those sales are cut in half, that's going to impact the average sale price more than anything else?
Yeah, it's inventory. I mean, all stats are typically inventory driven, so we have an inventory issue. And I would say, in certain neighborhoods where housing is more, how do I say this, less unique. So if you go into some of the fancy neighborhoods at the north end of Midtown Toronto, it's a lot of infill housing. So house A, B, and C are relatively similar. You'll be happy if you buy A, B, or C. It's not a big deal, meaning there's going to be more inventory that's coming. Whereas if you look at Moore Park, which is the example I just used, those houses are all unique. And I can have clients looking in those neighborhoods who I had one years ago who waited 7 years for their house. So I think that's what's keeping the pricing in that luxury market at a higher level, as opposed to call it like York Mills, where things are more replaceable.
Right. They kind of look the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is something going on. This is a debate in the country, is inventory. Every realtor, because we're pumping ourselves all the time and, trying to create urgency. Apparently that's that's
what we've been told. Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We all say there's no inventory. And then everybody else that, people that are having trouble getting into a home, or maybe people that won't own homes or whatever, are saying, oh no, it's not that. It's that they're vacant, or that it's all speculation. It's all a pyramid scheme, whatever they want to call it. How do we get down to, do we have enough inventory or not? Because it seems to be a highly debated topic. And it's strange because I have clients right now that are looking for, let's call it low end first time buyer. And you're talking about what I would consider in my market, ultra luxury, not just luxury, right? And we still can't find properties for our people.
Yeah.
In a crappy market where we should be able to negotiate hundreds of thousands of dollars off.
Yeah.
So what is the core? Is there really a lack of inventory?
So in my market, like the central core of Toronto, I think there's been a few things that have happened to stop sellers from selling. One is COVID. So people who are historically at a stage where they would right size or downsize are like, you know what? I don't want to get stuck in a condo if there's another lockdown. I don't want to be locked in. I want to be able to step out of my backyard. And then the other huge thing is this boomerang. These kids coming home, people who historically would have been ready to sell their homes aren't. They need to hold on to them for their kids to come back because their kids can't afford to buy anything. So that's really holding up inventory in my primary markets in a big way. And I don't know. I mean, you raise a good point. There's a lack of inventory across most segments of the market, not all, but most segments of the market. And is it because people were unsure at the end of last year? They just didn't know what to expect, so they held off? I'm not sure.
Well, I can even, we've had a lot of conversation with clients leading up to this year, and now we're prepping their condos to go on the market, where they've said like, yeah, we want to sell the condo and move to a townhouse or buy our first house. So that inventory is coming to the market, which I guess will service the first time home buyer segment of the market. But I mean, let's say I'm sitting in my house in Rosedale and I'm turning on the news and I'm being told prices crash 20% and interest rates are at an all-time, they've risen at an all-time high, and I'm sitting there and like, oh, okay, I guess it's not a good time to sell my house.
That's it. They don't do the research. They don't scratch the surface to actually get like the microeconomic picture of their circumstances.
Yeah. How much of the high end stuff, I've always been curious about this. Like, so obviously a lot of the properties that are sold on MLS, and that's how we track stats. And even like what I was saying before, is like, I noticed the over $2 million represented a higher, but that's what sold on MLS. There's a lot of high end that never touches MLS that we don't ever hear about. So is it almost as much as on MLS, or like, what do you think the percentage would be that actually sells exclusively?
It's probably 30 to 40% of what we see trading. 30 to 50% of what we see trading on MLS. Yeah.
Wow.
Now that would be at the ultra high end.
Sure.
I'm a big proponent of MLS. Even when I sell my own houses, of course, any of us could sell our houses exclusively.
Right.
But why?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand the mindset unless there's a need for secrecy. But I've always sold my houses using the system.
So what do you think, though, of like Korea is, in my
They walked back on that, by the way. So
they have walked back on it. They said they've postponed it.
Yeah.
But there is a push from the national organization to basically, in my estimation, I reading into it, it's basically outlawing exclusives. Because you can still have an exclusive, you just can't advertise it, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But like so much of, for instance, if I get I don't often get farms, but let's say I get a hobby farm. It's 1 acre, 2 acres, whatever, and it's got commercial or farm exemption status, whatever. That's probably in my market, depending on zoning, going to be sold to a developer. So unless it's in the agricultural land reserve. So that's fine, but that's not going to MLS because that's getting shopped to all the developers, and the developers, anything they're going to buy, they don't want their information of their purchase on the MLS. They specifically, because it may not close for 3 years.
Yeah.
So what's I'm assuming that's similar to a luxury market. Let's say, for instance, I don't know, you get what's your guys' team called? The Maple somethings. Let's say you get a hockey player and they don't want their name on the MLS. They don't want pictures of their property on the MLS so their fans can come stalk them. But then what? You can't advertise that property either?
I mean, what will happen is it will just become a world of like phone calls, right? So that there's no traceable way of marketing it, but people will just pick up the phone. We all know who's selling the high-end real estate. I mean, it's not that big a group of people. But I think it's just fundamentally wrong that the government's trying to tell homeowners how they can sell one of their larger assets. Like,
yeah, you and Steve agree on that one. Yeah.
Welcome to British Columbia, where the government tells you how to do everything. Tom, why do you think they're doing it though? Is it specifically to get rid of the coming soons, which is coming soon seems to be an issue in Toronto and not here or anywhere else.
Cailey could probably speak this better than me, but what I would assume is you see a coming soon sign for 2 weeks. Then you find out the agent that had the coming soon sign never showed it to anybody but their own buyer, double-ended it, didn't give people an opportunity to see it, and then there was complaints about it. I would assume that's where this stemmed from, and then got to a level that they've been told this is a widespread issue where it's probably doesn't happen actually that often.
I can email you the list of agents.
Yeah. Well, Priya might be calling you if they listen.
I'm not one of them. Yeah.
But maybe that to me sounds like it should be a TREB issue and not a Korea issue, right? Like Korea, you're talking about governing now, maybe a Markham problem or something that's happening in these tight little areas as nationally, because it's not here. We don't have coming soon signs now that I think about it. We'll have like a coming soon Facebook post and the listing will be on, generally speaking. Most people don't use exclusive here. But if I have an exclusive listing, their proposal, they've gone back on it. Their proposal was to say you cannot advertise that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same issue. If I look at the people, so 2022 was the year I've never had more complaints through RICO or whatever you name it, I got to complain about it. And it's because people were using agents who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then they had remorse afterwards. And then they wanted to point their fingers. And every single one of them, Rico's gone back to the other agent to say, I'm sorry, she did nothing wrong. Like, we've investigated. I can't tell you how many hours I've spent doing this. And I think that these are the agents who are driving this complaint process to try and change the exclusive listing. They're not agile. They're not in the market. They're missing things, and they want a reason or they want an excuse to say why they've missed it. They're not professionals. That's why you've missed it. You're not in the game. So, I think that there's an issue. If you actually want to buy and sell your real estate intelligently, then you have to hire someone who knows the market.
Yeah. I mean, and we're moving into a market where that's going to become more evident than it has been recently, right? Which may be for the people that actually do hold market share and take their business seriously and didn't just get their real estate license in 2020 because they heard the market was good, And not to say they're not great people and can't have a great career, but I actually think like us three and many of the people we associate with are going to have maybe not the best financial years of our life, which is okay, but the best market share building years of our lives, which you've already proven to us, Cailey, and this is like going back to the last time this happened. That's when you really started taking off, right?
When you go. Yeah, absolutely. And then my comment wasn't meant to be unkind to those agents, just that, I'm not going to hire a lawyer who does his job 2 days a week. That's just not who I'm going to hire to do my legal transaction. I'm not going to get on a plane with a pilot who flies twice a year. Like, no, thank you. But I think
it's strange. It's really strange, Cailey, that so you have the Competition Bureau who says, you can't just limit one person to having one profession, which I understand. And that's their mandate. And that's what they've put in place. So, BC used to have a license and no other job. But then you've got, particularly in BC, a real push to increase the professionalism of all of the agents, of which in my board area, like 15% of the agents joined in the last 6 months. So thank you very much. But so you're increasing this professionalism.
Talk about timing. Sorry.
But you can't. I mean, this is going to be probably a self-serving argument, and I'll get roasted in the comments for it. But honestly, are you hiring tomorrow a surgeon that did their last surgery 13 months ago?
Yeah, definitely.
Probably not. So we can't press for professionalism and consumer protection and then just have a super low barrier of entry into the profession and then make it so affordable for those people to stay in the profession that that's what I think probably the number one thing is hurting the public. That's my opinion. I'm sure I can go to jail for saying that, but
as we're talking, I'm going through everything I've said in this. I'm like, oh God, I forgot the public watches.
This is not a conversation.
No one roast me, okay? Please.
Oh no, just don't read the comments. Those people will roast, but that's fine.
Well, I'm going back to my luxury comment and now feeling a little bit self-conscious about it. But it's just, yeah. So
it's the truth,
Cailey, let me stop you there. You shouldn't feel ever, and this is where our society has gone wrong. You should never feel bad about being in a good position and putting yourself in a good position.
Yeah.
You should never feel bad about that. And our society demonizes right now people who are trying to succeed. And that is stupid and it needs to stop. So people want to hear about people who are doing well, and the smart people will take that in. And the smart people here, for instance, the agents that are listening, the smart people will go, holy crap, Cailey is the best agent out of 20,000 agents. I need to listen to her. And then the idiots will be in the comments talking about how horrible of a person you are. And those people suck.
Mom,
those people suck. Don't read the comments. I'm trying not to read them myself.
I don't have the strength for the comments.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by the Story Team at Royal Lepage Signature in Toronto, Ontario. The Story Team focuses on satisfying all of their clients' wants and needs when either buying or selling real estate in the GTA. But don't take my word for it. They have way over 100 5-star reviews on Google from clients singing their praises after amazing home purchases and sales. From downtown Toronto condos to semis semis to detached homes, whatever your needs, Tom and his team promise to provide an educated, honest, and transparent approach to helping all of their clients achieve their financial and personal goals through real estate. So there is no need to search bus benches or newspaper ads anymore to find the right agent for you. Just visit www.storyteam.ca to book a call with the Story Team today. That's STOREYTEAM.ca. That's storyteam.ca. This communication is not intended to cause or induce breach of any existing agency agreement.
But going back to what you're saying about agents, so I think, if I look at my team and I look at sort of my top producers on my team, many of them are new to the industry in the last 3 to 5 years. So there's definitely a space for new agents. Like, without question, I think our industry should encourage new agents, but they have to be agents who have moral strength and who are motivated by their client success, not by lining their wallet. And when we were talking earlier, and you said, I'll have questions about scaling. My scaling has always been driven about what is best for my client. That's how I've grown. It's never been about, let me draw out an org chart, like an ideal state org chart for 5 years from now. That's not how my brain works. It works by, okay, my phone is ringing more this year, therefore I need more help. And so that's sort of how I've built the business.
I don't want to let Tom talk here because this is where I want to get into scaling. Okay,
Go for it.
So I have averaged, I want to say I've calculated for the last 10 years, I average 85 ends on my team.
Amazing.
If I want to scale that, here's the thing. The thing I'm struggling with is I don't want to work more.
Yeah.
But I do want to scale it. And now with the leads that are coming in, I think I can scale it. So what was your maybe step to going from top producer, top 1%, to not top 1% to the top 1? How do you get there?
So I don't know the structure of your team now, but for me, I think the biggest change in my business was hiring my first licensed sales assistant. Was a game changer for me because it freed up my time from running. I was still running, but I was running in a different way. And I was able to focus on the business more than I had historically been. So that was sort of the first change. And then I started to, I'm naturally a very shy person, which people don't believe, but well, Tom, you know that I am naturally very shy. I've worked my way through that. And as I've climbed out of my shell, I think that I've built, my business is built around just liking people. I spend a lot of time with people, and that's where my business comes from. So from a scaling perspective, I just started to analyze what are the things I'm really good at and what do I want to spend my time on versus what are the things that I'm good at and I don't want to spend my time on. What are the things that I'm okay at that I spend too much time on, and what do I hate and I never want to do again? So I sort of bucketed it those 4 ways and then hired for the 2 to 3 of the buckets that I didn't want to spend time in. And it's been really helpful for me. Like, I'm very passionate. My background, I have a commerce degree with a major in marketing. So the marketing piece is still something I'm very, very passionate about. Do I ever want to look at a spreadsheet again? No. Do I ever want to write out a process again? No. But I'm happy to approve them. Like, if someone puts them on my desk, I'll look at it and say, okay, this is logical. Let's go. So I think it's just letting go a little bit, not being as in control and being able to delegate more than I was even a year ago. Every year I get better at delegation.
Because what I was thinking when you were saying all this, because Cailey, you've built up a team in a way which you've grown and it's made sense on a profitability side as well, where I find like a trap a lot of people fall into is, I'm going to grow a real estate team, and they hire 7 people and make the same amount of money they made on their own. Like, it just makes no sense. So
yeah.
See Steve's structure. Steve, you have a full-time administrator and you have 3 other licensed, or is it 2 other licensed?
It's floating right now because
Okay.
I've got one person very, very close to retirement. Technically right now, selling agents right now, there's 4 licenses and 2 administrators.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then I think one of the best hires I made was, I'm trying to think of how many years ago it was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I hired a director of ops. So someone to take on all the stuff that is just, I'm like, I don't want to manage people. I'm not good at managing people. I can lead people. I don't want to manage people. I don't want to, I really, really don't ever want to think about a process again as long as I live. So I've really hired for the stuff I don't like doing, and it's freed me up to be much more creative in the rest of the business. And you're right, Tom, like our profitability, we have very good profitability. I had this conversation in Chairman's Club. Tom and I are part of the Chairman's Club group that goes away together once a year. And one of the agents there, he said to me, "Oh, I bet I make way more money than anyone at the top." And I looked at him and I was like, "Pretty sure you don't." Like it's not that's not what drives me. I actually never know what I've made until my account tells me at the end of the year. But I'm not, I think I'm reasonably intelligent, so I'm not going to run a business that's not profitable.
Right.
Every time I hire, I try and figure out, okay, if that person is doing that piece of work for me, if they're taking that off my plate and frees up X amount of hours for me in a month, if those hours can produce more than enough revenue to double their income, then of course it makes sense. And by that, I mean, can I use those hours to build more business?
Yeah.
Steve, would you ever consider that, bringing in someone to manage the team so you can just focus on the leads and the listings?
Trust me, I thought about it. At this point, if I could hire today and had a magic wand to find the right person, Tom, you know this just because of the way we're going, but I would probably just hire someone to handle my video editing and all that stuff, because right now, I think if the amount of leads that are coming in off of the videos that I do is probably unfair. Right. Like it is fantastic. We're a small team, but I'm going to say 5 buyer appointments in a crappy market in the last 7 days.
Wow.
If you can get that every single week all year long, you're gonna be tops in your
And just
board,
to
right?
cut you off for a sec, to be clear to the people watching and listening, it's because you've put in 2 years of extremely hard work and time on making educational content about your market on YouTube that people are finding you and trusting you and watching you for 8 months and then calling you. It's not like you snapped your fingers and
No. It's a ton of work. But what I'm saying is, if I could then get it, like right now I'm back up because I'm chasing Tom Storey to 10,000 subscribers. Right now I'm back up to 3 videos a week, and that is probably 2 of my working days spent getting those out. So if I could get those 2 days back, I'm sure I could actually put out 5 videos a week and reach even more people and then scale the business that way. That's kind of where my mindset is. I just can't find anyone that I think can do it as good as me. And that is usually the problem. I think my success in that is so much of me does go into the messaging, right? Like one of my most recent videos has, like, I put in little silly clips, Cailey, and one of my most recent ones is one of my most recent ones has like a 1981 like Monty Python like 1 second clip. And if you're in my generation, you know exactly what that is, and you're going to appreciate it. And I think I'll lose that. And that's why I'm not so willing to just the personal messaging, right? Everything you're seeing is me. So now I have to run the analysis on how much new business can I get versus how much of me doesn't go into the content I'm putting out, and then does that even balance out? I don't know.
If you hire the right person and spend time with them, for sure it'll be diluted, but they should be able to get your voice, I would think. It won't be as good. Of course it won't be as good because it won't be you.
It'll probably be a lot better because they're going to be like Tom. They're going to be like my little Tom sitting on my shoulder. Steve, please don't say that today. And I'll be like, okay, fair point.
You know what I'm embarrassed to say is I don't do video in my business, like very little. I do like maybe a few a year. So
you do a great job at marketing your listings, and
I'm very into marketing. I just don't do this type of like podcasty video stuff. But I'm going to start. And I'm going to buy earphones like both of you, so I look very official the next time I do.
These are the most expensive, like 7-year-old Apple.
I did bring my like honestly giant ones, but I was like, that's not a look.
Well, it shows to you though that you don't need this stuff. This is just the channel that's been successful for Tom and I.
Yeah.
Right. Like for you, I mean, I have a friend that does double the business I do. And his whole day is just dialing people he knows and
Yeah.
then dialing people he doesn't know. And he spends 4, 5, 6 hours a week or a day on the phone. And that is just not me. So if that's you, I mean, that is how I did so much of my business for so many years. But I just didn't like it. And now I found something I like.
I mean, it goes back to me being shy. I've never cold called someone or door knocked someone in 24 years, ever.
Door knocking to me seems like the most terrifying thing in the entire
Same.
world.
I'd rather speak on a stage to 700 people than door knock one stranger and be like, hello, sir.
I'd rather do neither, just to be clear. But I think it speaks to something that you said earlier is, people assume that we're not working. Like, a lot of people have the perception that agents make so much money and we don't have to work hard and we make our own schedules. And I sit back and I think, you know what? Listen, I'm very grateful. I love what I do. I don't want this to sound like I'm not grateful, but I work my ass off. Like, I do, I'm sure you guys do the same thing. Like, I probably work 12 to 14 hours a day, at least a couple days a week. I definitely don't ever put my phone away out of the 7 days in a week. I don't ever just say my phone's staying at home today. So I think that's another piece of it is like people can be very critical of our industry, but those of us who are working hard and doing it well and doing so with some, high commitment to treating people properly, it's hard work. It's no joke. It's no joke.
I want to clarify your statement there because I know you were on a good thing, but you're 12 to 14 hours a day. You said at least a couple times a week. That's not the only 2 days you work.
No. I work 7 days a week. Well, that's not true. I don't work 7 days a week anymore. I work.
But that's okay.
Yeah. No. I work like a solid 5 days a week, and 3 of those days will be 8 to 9 hours days. 2 of them are probably 12 to 14, and on the weekend I probably do 2 to 4 hours a day. So is it perfectly balanced? No. But when I was sitting down saying that I want to create balance in my life, that's the stuff where I'm like, who am I hiring to make
you're such an agent, Cailey, because you said you only work 2 to 4 hours a day on your days off.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. But it's better than it used to be. But that's like talking about scaling. I don't think I'm the perfect person to ask because I still have to figure out a way to be more, working on my business as opposed to being stuck in my business every day. Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that I'm working on. I've just for the first time done it time blocking in my calendar. First time in 24 years. So let's see how that goes.
It's a magical thing if you can keep on with it. Like time blocking is pretty cool. We've talked a lot about this, and I bring up the tiger proof analogy where like you are your business or your brand can be your business. You're obviously very passionate about marketing and you spend a lot of time on building your brand. So right now, do you think your team's growth has been because a buyer or seller or an agent wanting to join your team goes, I want Cailey Heaps in my house today to help me, or because I see Heaps Estrin brand signs all over the neighborhood, I see them everywhere, they're doing all my, like, do you think the brand is the biggest part of the growth, or has that been you as an individual?
It's the brand.
Yeah.
If you had asked me that question 4 years ago, I would have said it was more me, but every year I make a conscious effort to be less involved. I mean, I'm involved in every transaction, but to give more transactions to my team. And, I think what I've realized, and this speaks to scalability as well, is what I've realized is I don't have to do everything. My highest and best use, what I'm the best at, is to go into a house, price it, come up with a strategy, and then negotiate it. Everything in between I don't need to do. That is not the best use of me. So that's allowed us to increase our volume. It's also allowed my team to be really involved in sales and then get business from each of those sales. So the short answer is the brand. The brand is where the value sits now.
And the team model, this model of, okay, if I'm a seller and I meet with you and your team, I basically give you my key. And I've tried to replicate this in my business as well, not to the scaling level that you've done so far, but it's just everything's taken care of. It's like the marketing, the staging, everything. And there's people for every job. And you guys are like this well-oiled machine. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, well, first, just to compliment you on it, but how can a regular agent that starts right now working on their own compete? And I honestly, truthfully mean that. How?
It's not, unfortunately, it's no longer possible.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that I invest in my listings is not possible for a single practitioner. I can invest there's economies of scale.
Right.
So when I'm spending, a few $100,000 a year with one marketing company, it's just not going to happen for an individual agent or a team of 2 people or whatever. So I think the difference is, when people look at my business, you can't really compare it to that of an agent. I'm not an agent. I'm running a company.
Yep.
What we do is sell real estate. So there is the similarity. We sell real estate. We have a common goal. But the way that I do it is not the way that, 99% of the people in the industry would do it.
Which is probably why you found the success, because you haven't just copied what everyone else is doing, which is what the rest of the industry does, right? And then do you think just this team model, it's not going anywhere? Like, this is the future of real estate?
I mean, I think that for an educated seller to look at option A or option B, and they look at a single agent who has to be an expert in 15, 20, 30 things in the course of selling the house. And that person's going to be pulled and spending their time picking up lock boxes and flowers and filling out paperwork versus hiring a well-oiled machine where everyone you're dealing with is the best at what they do.
Yeah. I mean, I tell my sellers, I'm like, don't worry, I'm not the one staging your property.
Yeah.
You don't want me to be the one that does it. I hire in a third party who is amazing at it. You don't worry about that. Like, I'm not the one moving things around.
Yeah, and it's a real agent ego thing where they, like, single agents, well, I do everything. Well, that's not good. Like, that's not what I would want if I was hiring someone. I don't want my surgeon to also be my anesthesiologist, to also be my nurse, to also be the person who, like, scrubs my body down before and after, and, like, no thank you.
Right.
I want the best to come in, do their thing, and then have a team around them to do everything else.
That is the tough part, right? It's like you walk into a place and their number one question is like, do you think the couch should be there or over there? And I'm like, oh, you don't understand what I do for a living. Right? Yeah. Like, I said, I'm gonna have someone come in. We hire, ours is third party staging consultants, right? I'm going to hire someone to come in and they're going to worry about that. My job is to make sure you get the most amount of money and that you don't end up getting sued afterwards. These are the 2 priorities that I have. So contract and negotiation is my big thing. Yeah. And if you're hiring an agent because of where they tell you to put the couch, could be in trouble.
Yeah, agreed.
Cailey, do you have, in your 20-something years of experience in real estate, do you have any crazy-ass stories that stick out to you that you can share publicly? Like, you've walked into something or some things happen that's just been ridiculous?
Yeah, I mean, I've got lots of them. I think the one that probably sticks with me the most is in my first year in real estate. I was going into my own listing to prep it for a showing, like to turn on lights and whatever and wait for the agent to show up. And I guess the son hadn't realized I was coming in that day, and he was in bed with someone when I opened the door. Like, I went through the house. Anyway, he didn't hear me. I opened the door, saw way more than I would ever like to see of a young teenage boy, and that was it. But I've had a lot of those. Like, I've walked into people in showers. I've had, the worst is when you have, like, people who are actively fighting with each other.
Right.
I'm not good with confrontation, so I really get uncomfortable in those situations. I'm trying to think of other, like the classic, oh, we didn't have time to pick up the dog shit. Can you pick it up before the showing? And you go out and it's like 2.5 years worth of it in the backyard. Yeah. So things like that, are very glamorous jobs of,
Our buyers, we had an ongoing joke when I would knock on doors. I had like a 2 knock and then I'd open the door and go, hello. Yeah. And it was like, it became my shtick. Every buyer knew my hello, just to like echo into the house to make sure no one was there, that we weren't walking into anything crazy.
I do the same. Since that junior rated scene I saw, I started doing the same thing back then as well.
Steve, you've had some fun things. Steve was wearing masks before masks were cool to go into his own listings.
That was a foreclosure that the entire ensuite bathroom was just caked in like black mold. Oh yeah, that was a fun one. The one I like the best to tell is we were on Realtor tour. This is probably 2014 maybe. And so where I'm in Cloverdale, you end up with most of the top agents. Some of them still do it, but COVID for sure killed all this, but we go on realtor tour. So 20, 30 of us would get in our cars, go around, see everybody's new listings. And I remember the one where we walked on in and that family did not know. There's actually another one I think of now. But for instance, this particular one, and so you walk in the main door and then there's a big staircase and then there's one of those just railing, there's bathrooms, everything upstairs, but it's all open and vaulted. And that owner was very lucky. She brought a towel out of the bathroom.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And it was probably like right in these big, huge doors, these double doors that open. They swing open and there she is right at the top of the stairs. And like I say, luckily she had a towel.
How did she react? Did she scream or run or what'd she do?
I was surprised at how long she stood at the top of the stairs with her towel. Because I would have ran in the bathroom and closed the door. There was another, I'm going to give you another one also on Realtor Tour. The family thought Realtor Tour was on Saturday for some reason. It wasn't. They were always Thursdays. And we walked in and the place is just disgusting. And there was even a note in the bathroom that said, Realtor Tour Saturday, please remember to flush.
Oh God.
It was so bad.
I mean,
they had their cat litter on the dining room table and they hadn't cleaned it in maybe 4 months, 5 months. It was atrocious.
That is atrocious.
The most expensive listing I had ever shown at that point in my career, like this probably 6 years ago, it was this $4 million penthouse, like the most gorgeous place you'd ever seen, everything about it. And then we walk into the primary bedroom and the ensuite and just the biggest turd you've ever seen in the toilet.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, this whole house is perfect and this is what they left.
I mean, that's the other thing that always amazes me. I mean, in my career, probably 5 or 6 or 7 times, people who have on weekends have been out with their kids and they have an emergency and then they stop at an open house to use the bathroom. And I'm like, no. Sorry, no bueno. Go find Tim Hortons or something. But it's happened to me multiple times in my career.
Just want to see if the plumbing works in this house.
Yeah, it's just wild to me.
Do you guys do open houses on luxury stuff?
Not at the high end, but yeah, we do it. We do up, in the 2s and 3s for sure.
Do you have people just mansion looking?
We're pretty strategic in the way that we do it. Like I wouldn't put out 20 signs for a luxury open house. I would maybe have 2 or 3, and just market the open house to the people who I think are actually buyers or know people who will be buyers. Yeah. So I don't get a ton of looky-loos. We used to back in the old days, but we don't as much anymore.
I think we get a ton of looky-loos, like people that are interested, but I don't get the thing where people are like, oh, I just wanted to come see this house I know I can't afford.
Yeah,
right? Like they might be from down the street or whatever, and maybe they're just nosy neighbors, but they're not coming in for what I would worry about, maybe security risks or whatever.
Yeah. It's not voyeurism.
It's probably because now the virtual tours are so amazing and the pictures online that they can search on their phone and feel like they've seen the house as much, where maybe 15 years ago, the virtual tours weren't what they are today. They wanted to go see the property, right?
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Tom.
Cailey, we're going to wrap this thing up. I got one final thing I want to bring up with you because I think this is just good for everyone to hear, regardless of industry that they are in. You had talked to me about the fact that when you go into a meeting with a client, you work yourself through like a mindset shift and you meditate a little bit. Can you just explain what that process is like going into a meeting?
For sure. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, my doctor said to me, you need to start meditating because your stress levels are too high. So I taught myself how to meditate. Well, that's a lie. I didn't teach myself. Muse taught me how to meditate. And then I started to use it at moments where I just want to have total clarity. I think that our days can be so frenetic and there's always someone needing something from you, that I found I was going into pitches and I wasn't clear at all. I was still thinking about what I was doing 10 minutes ago. I was worried about what if my phone rings and I can't answer it. So what I do now is I try and budget to arrive on the street 5 to 10 minutes before the appointment. And I just close my eyes and breathe, for 5 minutes, let's call it. And I breathe in the things that I want. It doesn't have to be about that appointment, but whether it's clarity or peace or, whatever. And then I breathe out the things that are occupying my mind. So stress, frustration, anger. And I just do that for a few minutes, and I find that I can go in and I have total focus, and nothing else is really clouding my thoughts as I enter the appointment. And I find it incredibly helpful.
Yeah, because I feel like I used to pump myself up for appointments. I'd listen to like AC/DC or like, you know, like something like that, like get myself in the mode where,
Well, Eye of the Tiger, yeah.
yeah, what I've recognized is I'm actually way better when I'm just ultra calm. So,
Yeah.
so my word for 23 is calm. Cailey's was patience. Steve, what's your word for 2023?
Diet.
Oh yeah, he's doing a weight loss. He's doing a weight loss challenge right now. He's already down how much, Steve? Can you say?
Keith, I'm crushing you. I'm down already 10 pounds.
Amazing. That's great. Yeah. I'm doing dry January. That's a lot of fun.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm giving that a shot. The only trouble, this fella that reached out, the only trouble with it is he's very smart. We're not finishing our bet until December 1st.
It's a true full year.
So I can drop 50 pounds in 3 months. The question is, how's the next 6 months after that going to go?
Wow. That's a huge commitment. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm going to crush it.
Yeah.
Keith, you're going to lose. Keith, if you're listening, you're probably listening. You're going to lose. Just give up now.
What's at stake besides the weight? Are you do you guys have a bid going or a bet going?
Yeah, it's not a bet to each other's pockets. It's who can make each other pay more to our given charities. So he will pay the Surrey Food Bank a ton of money. I'll pay the Burnaby Food Bank probably nothing because Keith is going to lose. And we're going to do it in December.
Awesome. Good for you. That's great.
Cailey, this was so much fun. I appreciate you being here. I know we talk lots off the record, but it's fun to talk on the record for other people to listen once in a while as well. For anyone that just wants to connect with you, your team, or find out more about your services, what's the best place for them to go?
So the team Instagram handle is heapsestrin. Mine is Cailey Heaps, or the website heapsestrin.com.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you everybody for watching and listening to this episode. As always, if you enjoyed it, you can leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. Have an amazing day and we will see you next Sunday. Peace out.
No negative comments.
Bye. Yeah, no negative comments.
Good luck with
They wouldn't
that.
have listened this long if they're going to write something negative anyway.